everybody. This is the 23rd day of March, 2022. And because it's 7 o'clock and it's Wednesday, it's time for the progress
Well,
report.
there's a little energy, Bob.
Oh,
Glad to see
man.
you wound it up. Yes, it is.
Well,
it is.
you know,
and by the way,
our guest will do that for me.
Midway between St. Patrick's Day and the parade, so there's a lot of energy.
Oh,
just
well, there would
in
be.
the city.
There would be, yeah.
I can't help but
we're
remind
gonna let you go on that, but I got something I want to do first.
Oh, and I brought some entertainment too, if you want to.
Entertainment. I
Got a
always
couple
like that.
videos we can put up.
Oh, okay.
But first of all, I have to say, and we have a wonderful guest tonight, so don't go away, folks. We have a wonderful guest, Alan Raff. I want to just comment on and I've done it before, but the loss of my dear friend and an inspirational character here in New Hampshire, a man of many achievements, Robert Rennie Cushing. Brittany, can you put up that picture I sent you? Could you do that?
When did you send it to me? I don't have it.
Oh, dear. Well, I thought it was this afternoon. I thought I sent it to you. Maybe I didn't get it. If you don't have it, that's okay. I just want to say Robert Rennie Cushing died March 7th of a long time fight against prostate cancer, which became stage 4, which he was in when he sought and achieved the status of leader of the House Democrats. And he had a wonderful wake, good Irish wake. You would have loved it, Mike. And then a marvelous memorial service in Dover, where people from all over came to celebrate his accomplishments, his humor, his just his joie de vivre of this guy, I got to get right to it. His number one achievement was to be probably the most important person, certainly one of the most important persons to end the death penalty in New Hampshire, which he did by achieving an unbelievable result. It took decades. Although his own father was a murder victim in 1988, his father, who was a person to who he was very close, his father was a combat veteran from World War II, a Marine who effected landings in the islands of the Pacific War. And Rennie went to one of those islands, I think it was Peleliu, with his father and celebrated remembering his father's commitment to defeating the Axis in World War II. And then he came home and his father got brutally murdered in front of Rennie's mother in the home that Rennie occupied for many, many years afterwards in Hampton on Winnicott Road, when an off-duty Hampton cop came up holding a grievance over some participation that the elder Mr. Cushing had over some arrest the Hampton police were making when the murderer was a Hampton cop, and blew his father away through the screen door while his mother was in the room. Can you imagine anything more horrible? Can you imagine it? And people would come to Rennie and say, "God, that was awful. I hope your father fries. I hope that murder of your father fries." Rennie said, "I didn't want that. That's not what I wanted to hear. I wanted to not have any more killings on behalf of victims. I wanted to support the victims. I didn't want people killing them." And he devoted many, many years of his life. He allied with Bud Welch, whose daughter was killed in the Oklahoma bombing, Timothy McVeigh, who they did put to death in a federal proceeding. And he allied with Bob Curley, whose son, who was originally taken captive here in Manchester, New Hampshire, right here on Elm Street, and brought to Massachusetts and brutally murdered. And it almost led Massachusetts, which hasn't had the death penalty for years, 100 years, I guess, to reinstate the death penalty. And Bob Curley, after meeting Rennie Cushing, said, "I don't want that either." And these were among the people that spoke at his memorial service. And I have to say, Rennie Cushing was my hero. He'll always be my hero. And I miss him so much. And what an awesome guy. And the wonderful thing about Rennie Cushing, none of this was gloom and doom. He was zestful. He was happy. He was funny. He was creative. When he was leading the Clamshell Alliance, and I remember that, I go back to him within the mid-1970s. Started out with a march in 1976 along the railway tracks up through the Seabrook site, walking along with 18 people. They got arrested. A few years later, 180 got arrested. And a few years later, 1,414 got arrested. And Rennie was among them. And they all served time in 3 National Guard armories, Manchester, Dover, and Portsmouth. And yet he went on to become the leader of the New Hampshire House Democrats. And he fought for many things. I didn't agree with him on everything. He wanted to completely I was in favor of decriminalizing pot. I wasn't in favor of legalizing it. He was in favor of I didn't agree with him about that. But what he did, and the people he inspired, just awesome. And with the memorial service on Saturday in it was in Dover, an old mill building in Dover. It was a wonderful thing. And at the end, they sang the clamshell anthem, Acres and Acres of Clams. I was threatening to sing it here right tonight. Acres and acres of
Hey,
clams.
Bob, you have the floor if you'd like.
I have the floor, but I don't have the notes on it. I should have brought it because it was wonderful. And everybody holding hands. It was inspirational. In his life, what he did in his life. I mean, I one time said, Rennie, I really enjoy traveling. I'm planning some more Amtrak travel, so I got another train booked. He said, yeah. He says, I've traveled the country. I said, oh, what'd you take, the California Zephyr, the Empire Builder? No, he said, I took the freight trains. Starting in Portland, Maine, I got all the way to Vancouver.
He told that story right here on this show.
can't-
That was where I heard it for the first time.
Well, I'm sorry I'm
great
repeating
story,
myself.
and he relates it well.
And, he said, I'd get busted, I'd get out, and I'd say, Judge, I'm guilty. I'll try to be better. And the next day, you get another freight train and keep going. And he was
But not in that county, right?
a different county. And then he was a garbage collector in Atlanta, Georgia, where he was the only white-faced guy on the whole back of a garbage pickup truck in the whole city of Atlanta. And he mined gold in Ontario. And he had a wonderful life, and what an imaginative guy. Did I tell a story? If I told a story, God stop me. I'm sounding like I'm as Irish as you are. But at one point, when he was fighting the Seabrook nukes, public service was facing all kinds of problems, mostly financial, which led him to form the Campaign for Ratepayers' Rights, which I led for a lot of years, which was opposed to having the ratepayers fund the goddamn construction project.
Language, Bob. It's a family show.
But in any event,
Just try to help.
At one time, public service decided it would help their image if they could brush up their public relations for a while. And they thought it would be good to have not public service owner of Seabrook, but something called New Hampshire Yankee owned Seabrook, which was interesting because at that time there was a Maine Yankee and a Vermont Yankee. Both nuclear plants have been shuttered for a long time. Because I think he thought Yankee, that sounds like a nice thrifty thing. We think of Yankee, they're tight with money. They're thrifty. So we want to have New Hampshire Yankee.
Kind of tone deaf, I think, but okay.
But anyway, Rennie heard this announcement, and I think at the time he was working with the Democratic office in Concord. So he just trotted down the floor, and then one floor down and across the hall, and went to the Secretary of State's office, and he registered the name New Hampshire Yankee. So when public service came out with their big press conference, it was a little awkward because they had to admit they could not use the name. It had already been taken by one Rennie Cushing.
Well,
He owned the
there
name.
are guys that take up domain names of high school athletes now in the hopes that they might turn into something. So Rennie was a leader in that industry, apparently.
In any event, I just thought it was a wonderful, and I know I'm going on, and I've gone on before, Mike. You're my friend. You let me do this. To know Rennie Cushing for 50 years, and he had no higher education than a high school degree.
Well, as I said last time we talked about Rennie, he went to the School of Life and he took extra credit
Well,
courses,
he learned to
you know,
teach
I mean,
himself Spanish. He learned more New Hampshire
that-
history
that-
than you and I will ever master.
Absolutely.
Finding out that the first governor to oppose the death penalty was Governor Badger in New Hampshire in the 1840s. What a guy. What a guy.
Represented himself in front of the Supreme Court as well, right?
He certainly did.
Yep. So
Yeah.
better lawyer than a lot of lawyers.
He was fearless. He was fun. He was zestful, and he had left behind 3 wonderful daughters and a wonderful widow who was a clamshell herself, Christy. So I've gone on too long. I apologize.
We have a show to do, Bob. We have a guest here.
We have a great.
We
guest.
have to welcome our wonderful guest
Hey,
from
thanks
the
for having me.
Manchester City Democrats, Alan Raff.
thank
Great
you
to
guys
see you.
for
Thanks
having
for
me.
coming
And
back.
it is that was really nice for Rennie. I was at the service in Dover as well.
Well,
and-
you were there.
Yeah,
Oh, well, you
and-
got a real sense of him.
Oh my gosh, he was amazing. As the amount of time that I spent working with him in labor union world, and then also on the state senate side, he was truly a special person. And I always think to myself, if I could have the patience and empathy that guy had, I would be doing a lot better in life.
You nailed those two words are so important. You really nailed.
We
Rennie
should all
Cushing.
aspire to be more like Rennie. Every one of us should.
Patience, something that I am bereft of,
Yeah, me too.
unfortunately.
Me too. Me too. That's why I have to remind myself.
However, the world will go on without Rennie, but being better because Rennie was here, and we are so pleased to have back Alan Raff.
So
City chair.
listen, Bob. For the past couple of weeks, we do a lot of politics on this show, but for the past couple of weeks, we've kind of been doing more fun stuff. We did the parade, and we've been doing some other stuff. So I brought a few videos that could really, I think,
Please.
bring us
love
right
your
back
videos.
to the big politics picture. And
We're going to get to you.
we are.
psyched.
We're
No, I'm
coming,
psyched.
but
I'm psyched.
and we'd like you to
No,
take a
this
look
is
at
great.
this. So Brendan, why don't you just play the first one? We're going to do a little contrast here. Let's take a look at number one.
It's an old story. At first, they seem ridiculous. The big egos, the bad ideas. Some of them seem almost comical. Not here, the people say. Yet men like these find their following because they know how to use hate and fear. Fear of foreigners, immigrants, and minorities. Of Jews, Muslims, Christians. They dismiss the experts, demonize the press, promise they alone can deliver better lives and brighter futures. If they could only be rid of the obstacles to that power. Eventually, enough people buy it. They hand the fate of their nations over to madmen. But then suddenly, it's not so funny. The military deploys on the streets to protect the leader. Names appear on enemy lists. Opposition voices are silenced or imprisoned. The leader promises the right bloodlines will survive, and the wrong ones will be purged. It's an old story, one that could never happen here. The very idea is ridiculous, almost comical. There's no one dividing us, no one telling us who to hate, who to put in cages, no one demonizing the press, dismissing the experts, no would-be savior claiming he alone can fix our problems if only the obstacles to power are removed. No one singling out the other, telling us what should become of them. No enemy lists, no threats of imprisonment. No one lashing out when their ego is threatened, demanding absolute loyalty and using the military to control the streets. No, it can't happen. Not here. We know too well how it begins, and it's always been up to us how it ends.
Well, I put that one up to
Mike.
set the table.
That was very powerful. That was very powerful.
The topic, remember, is leadership. So we see that type of leadership. And then, Brendan, if you'll play the next one, I think we'll see a little bit of a contrast.
Today, it's not enough to be the leader of the nation. Today, it takes to be the leader of the world. Being the leader of the world means to be the leader of peace. Peace in your country doesn't depend anymore only on you and your people. It depends on those next to you, on those who are strong. Strong doesn't mean weak. Strong is brave and ready to fight for the life of his citizens and citizens of the world, for human rights, for freedom, for the right to live decently and to die when your time comes, and not when it's wanted by someone else, by your neighbor. Today, the Ukrainian people are defending not only Ukraine, we are fighting for the values of Europe and the world, sacrificing our lives in the name of the future. That's why today the American people are helping not just Ukraine, but Europe and the world to keep the planet alive, to keep justice in history. Now I'm almost 45 years old. Today my age stopped when the hearts of more than 100 children stopped beating. I see no sense in life if it cannot stop the death. And this is my main mission as the leader of my people, great Ukrainians. And as the leader of my nation, I'm addressing the President Biden. You are the leader of the nation, of your great nation. I wish you to be the leader of the world. Being the leader of the world means to be the leader of peace. Thank you. Slava Ukraini.
And there we have it, a little montage that I put together on leadership. I hope it struck our viewers. I hope it struck our panel here.
Did me.
And give us a little something to think about. I tell you, there's the line that struck me most from President Zelensky was, leader doesn't have to be big. That's not the point. So with that's the big picture. To me, that is the big picture that underlies, that is the backdrop for everything that we do here in Manchester in politics, the elections we have, and I want to talk about that when we come back. We're almost at our break time, but we wanted to lay the foundation. Bob talked about a leader here in New Hampshire that certainly is unparalleled and will be sorely missed, but by example has inspired so many people. Everyone at this table for sure. And we've just seen historical context of leadership and what it can turn into. And I think now the history that we're living, probably the best example of leadership that I've seen in my lifetime. They talk about Winston Churchill, but boy, I think this guy's vying for that kind of notoriety in history. So I wanted to lay the table. We're coming back. We're going to talk about politics a little bit, and that's what politics is about, choosing our leaders.
Choices. That's what it's all about, yeah. And folks, 640-3091, we welcome callers. We've been delaying talking to our guests. We don't want to delay any further, so we'll be right back with that when we come back.
Yeah, we'll take a quick break.
Some good things have been happening locally, and nobody better to talk about than Alan Raff, the city chairman of the Manchester Democrats.
See you.
I don't know about you folks out there, but I thought those were two very, very powerful videos that Mike left us with, and we are so pleased to have with us Alan Raff, who is the chairman of the Manchester Democrats, who are having a major event on Sunday. We will talk about that. But, think about the stakes that we have as we go forward. We are now in the midst of a confirmation hearing for the first black African woman ever nominated to the Supreme Court, fulfilling a commitment that President Biden made since he was sworn in as president.
Have
before
you,
he was
have
sworn
you
in.
watched any of those? That woman
Is acquitting
amazing.
herself well.
Oh, my.
And you know, she
Talking
can't,
about patience.
she can't pull a Brett Kavanaugh and express outrage and rage, you know,
Nope.
because she's a woman, so she can't do that.
Brett Kavanaugh doesn't deserve to be in the same room as that woman.
I
Oh my
totally
God,
agree.
There is such a
I
difference.
mean, everybody agree. But Alan, tell us where we're at, and tell us about what's coming up this weekend, and tell us about the Manchester Democrats are doing.
Or do a victory lap.
Yeah.
And
Ward
and above all, do a victory lap about Ward 9.
I'm not going to take a victory lap. I'm going to let the people of Ward 9 and all the volunteers do the victory lap. I think that you saw something happen there. You know, you remember the Ward 6 special election that happened.
Mm-hmm.
We had around 1,000 voters, maybe a little under 1,000. And this time we had 1,115 voters show up. Now, this ward, Democrats, you know, if you're going to win in this ward as a Democrat, there's no way around it. You're going to need Republican votes. You're going to need undeclared votes. And so we started this campaign a couple of months ago, and Jim, you know, he had run in the ward before. He came really close to
23 votes.
Yeah, to beating Barbara in 2017. And so we knew that people knew him. His family has lived on that same street that he lives on over on Randall for decades and decades and decades. His dad lived there. His nieces lived there. His family has been entrenched in this ward. And when we started knocking doors, I got to tell you, you know, you guys have all knocked doors many times, and it's kind of a mixed bag when you go to doors that aren't Dems. If you're a Dem knocking on a door, Republicans knocking on Republican doors. Every person that I knocked hundreds of doors, and every person I talked to, save one person, everybody else I talked to was, even if they were like not really sure about how they felt about Jim, like, oh, really nice guy, really like his family, like he's a great guy. He was the easiest person to go around and talk to neighbors about that I've ever had to go knock doors for. And many of the people that I knocked doors, I'm like, oh yeah, get out of here, you're fine, yep, we're good, Jim, no problem. And we had to stop him from knocking so many doors because we were like, listen, you got to do other things. Like, you know, it's great that you want to go talk to all your neighbors all the time, and we really appreciate that's how you how you think you're going to win. You also have to do other things. You have to go on shows. You have to go talk on the radio. You got to, you know, do other stuff. And he
did run an awesome campaign.
He did. He really, really ran an awesome campaign. I got to shout out Representative Amanda Bolden and Representative Josh Query, who also helped run the campaign
Really
there.
great.
Oh my
great
gosh,
workers.
they did a fantastic job. But I got to say, having a candidate that is willing to do the work and that is just a good, earnest person and a person of his community, like that, he's not. It wasn't like somebody who was an outsider coming in and saying, you know, I want to help you, trust me, I'm going to do this. He has a record. He served that community for 44 years. He served New Hampshire for 44 years, and the people in that community knew that. So doing the job of the Manchester Dems and Amanda and Josh's job, you know, it was a little bit easier because he was such a good candidate and he was willing to do the work. I got to say that all of the, you know, the things that I have read that Victoria Sullivan was saying afterward about why she lost, I do not think they're not based in fact whatsoever. I can tell you right now, all the attacks on unions was Jim a firefighter? Yes, and a proud one at that. And I would say that if what she's saying that he won because of unions, if she means regular working people in Ward 9, who are not all union members, then she would be correct. He did win because normal people went out and voted for him. I can tell you that he didn't win because of unions. As a matter of fact, I work for the New Hampshire AFL-CIO. I can tell you exactly how many union members there are in that ward, and I can tell you that even if every single one of those union members and their entire household had gone out and voted for Victoria Sullivan, she still would have lost. So I will say that I know for a fact that he won because Republicans and undeclared voters voted for him, not because Democrats and union members came out and did. There aren't enough union members to change that election. The people of Ward 9 saw somebody who cared about the community, who cared about what he wasn't going out on the stump and saying things that weren't true. He wasn't going door to door and talking to people about national politics or things that didn't affect the people of Ward 9. He won because people trusted him, and he's an earnest person and somebody who wants to do good things for Ward 9. That's why he won.
Also, and knew how to do them.
And knew how to do them.
Which,
Yeah.
I mean, that's an important thing. It's one thing to talk about the problems,
Yeah.
but if you don't have a solution, and if you had one, you couldn't pull it off anyway, what good is it? You
Yeah,
know?
no,
So-
absolutely. I think
Well, Victoria Sullivan in defeat put out a I thought, an incredibly distressing, pathetic statement saying if only a certain ward hadn't been redistricted, part of the ward hadn't been redistricted,
Yep.
she would have won. This is an example of what's called sour grapes. Sour grapes. You know where that comes from?
I know the legend of Reynard the Fox.
Well, was it the Reynard the Fox? It
Reynard?
was Plutarch, wasn't it?
Well, I don't know who wrote the story.
Plutarch, you know.
I must have seen a medieval retelling of the tale.
And Plutarch has many wonderful fables, you know, the tortoise and the hare and all those things.
Well, that's
The one-
Aesop. Aesop.
Oh, Aesop. I may be wrong. It may be Aesop.
Good recovery, Mike. Good job.
But anyhow, the idea was that was it a fox that said,
The story I read in school was Reynard the Fox who couldn't reach the grapes and decided they must have been sour anyway. So I mean, maybe, I'm remembering
Or
a third grade tale, and that was a long time
right.
ago.
He said, I wanted those grapes. He said I couldn't get them anyway, so they're sour grapes. So I don't care. That's the gist of it.
And that's exactly what it sounded like. I gotta say that looking at where the lines were drawn and what how many where the streets went to other wards, that the registered Republicans, registered Democrats, and undeclared voters, again, like saying if every union member had voted for Victoria Sullivan, she still would have lost. Even if every Republican had voted for Victoria Sullivan who moved, she still would have lost. I know those numbers, so that's just patently false. And on top of that, I'd also like to say, to defend unions more, that I'm not sure that Victoria Sullivan understands actually what a union is or does. She said in the Union Leader that she thought that there was some place for private sector unions, no place for public sector unions. And in my experience, I have a bunch of Republican friends. Obviously, we don't agree on unions. However, if we were going to talk about unions, all of my Republican friends would say, actually, the only place that we need unions is public sector unions. And that private sector unions, we don't need them because we're Republicans and we're extremely big fans of capitalism. And we want to create competition, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't think that she actually understands what pensions are, what unions do what, and the benefits that unions can have to general working people in a city like Manchester. And on top of that, like I said, there wasn't enough to change the election for her in Ward 9.
Well, she'll be back, I'm sure. So.
If she'll run for state rep, bring it
well,
on.
she's
Bring it on.
already indicated she's not done running for
Something.
office in Manchester, whether it's mayor again or state rep, whatever.
Well, the people of Ward 9, I think, made it pretty clear with that vote. I mean, 645 to 460, like I said, you don't win that without getting undeclared voters and Republicans to vote
Yeah.
for you.
What about her claim that a certain part of the ward that was, I can't remember the name of the, what's the name of the place? In the southern part of the ward.
Where, Ken Burma Street? Is
Ken
that-
Burma.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. What
Yeah,
about
we
what
used to
her-
call that neighborhood the neighborhood. That's what.
That's what I was. That's what I was referencing. Is that I know how many voters were Republican, Democrats, Independents, or undeclareds there, and even if those people had stayed, she still would have lost.
I didn't see that as a huge Republican stronghold over there.
It's,
you know
it's,
what I
it's
mean?
not. It's not. That's what you said. Sour grapes.
Yeah, sour grapes, indeed. So, Alan, there's been other significant things happening in the quest for, some possible good openings for the Democrats in the state. I'm thinking particularly of the fact that the governor, who originally kind of hinted he might do it, is now saying he is going to actually veto the congressional redistricting bill that was approved by the redistricting commission led by Barbara Griffin from Goffstown, which wanted to move 300,000 people from the ward, from District 1, represented by our Congressman Chris Pappas, to Congressional District 2, represented by Annie Custer, including all the citizens of Portsmouth, Dover, Rochester, and Somersworth. And first of all, what do you think about his decision on this, and where do you think this might go?
So my first thought on it was when somebody told me about it, they hadn't said that he had used the word veto in his statement. So I heard that he didn't like them, and I said, okay, I'll wait until I see him veto it before I believe it.
That's
because
right.
He has
That's
said
right.
many times that he doesn't like certain things.
It
It didn't pass the smell test, but him using the word veto, I think, was a booster to at least my spirits as far as maybe recognizing that this was a ridiculous move to make them the way that the Senate and the House had decided to make them. However, I still we'll wait to see what happens on it. He did release a suggestion plan.
What do you think
his
of
own.
that map? I was curious as to your thought on it.
I do think that
It kind of swings the district a little northeast a
yeah,
little bit.
yeah. I mean, it's certainly better than what was proposed by the legislature, but I mean, it's not what I think is representative, really, and not what I would want. But I will say that it is better than what we had a week and a half ago. So that's that. And that said, actually, Chris Pappas can win anywhere. Like, Chris Pappas has won in Manchester, that executive
Do
council
you think
district.
he could have won with the originally proposed district redistricting? That would have been tough.
It would have been tough, but I mean, who could beat him? He is
Yeah,
a
the
likable-
opposition that they've got lined up over there is, real fringe stuff.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know.
And I know a lot of Republicans who voted for Chris Pappas here, not just in Manchester, but who had voted for him when he was an executive counselor in Hooksett and, all of these other places that aren't Manchester, aren't his home base. So I think you're going to have a hard time being Chris Pappas anywhere because he is a good candidate who cares about this state and
He doesn't make a lot of waves
No.
to excite the other side.
No, because he's a reasonable person. He represents the people that he represents, and I think that I will say that I think the governor, he is. I understand that he is friends with the person who is one of the people who is challenging Representative Custer. So I think that maybe he also was like, "Oh, I want my friend to have a fair shot at beating Andy Custer," as opposed
Really?
to the guy, the Schiller Brewery guy who's
yeah.
So I think there might have been some of that, but. Again,
You've given me the first hint. I could not, I see Republicans, I admire Republicans for their ability to play power politics. And I get upset with Democrats sometimes for their refusal to do so.
Yep.
But I never for a moment thought, with what they have, that he would buck that system and go against everything that Republicans stand for, which is keeping the power.
Yep.
That's all. That's all they stand
Yeah.
for.
I don't.
That's it.
I often say to myself, it'd be nice to have a Democrat who is slightly more principled than the Mitch McConnell that we have in the Senate. Like a Democratic version of that would be a great thing. Like a chess player that didn't mind getting called Darth Vader because they were a pragmatic parliamentarian. But I think. You have a good candidate, like we just saw in Ward 9. A good candidate wins. A good candidate who cares about his
We had a
community wins.
very good candidate,
Yeah, and we
Jim
do.
Burkish.
Yeah, we had a great candidate, Jim Burkish.
And
Chris
he worked
Pappas
hard.
is the same kind of candidate. People of all parties, stripes, whatever, they like him. Like his family, he's got Republicans in the family. And he was raised by those people. They all love him. They all go to their Republican
Well,
friends
his
and
whole
say,
family was Republican until he came along. Now they're not anymore.
Yeah.
They were.
I think so. To the question, the maps that the governor proposed are better than what we saw in the legislature, but again, not exactly what we would say as fair maps to create a level playing field for all candidates. But at this point, the power of politics, I'll take the lesser of two evils, of course. The executive council districts that were released.
Oh boy, they got literally a snake that goes across the state.
Yeah.
All the
And
way.
move
All
Hanover down out of District 1. That's a mess. And I'm hoping that this time, 10 years from now, Democrats come up with a 10-year plan to make sure.
May they be in control next time.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
may we have an independent commission to do this,
Yes.
which Marjorie Smith
See,
tried to do, and the governor vetoed it.
Independent commissions sound great, and ordinarily I would be all for it. But I've gotten their fist jammed down my teeth so long. I want us to win and us to decide the lines. That's what I want. And then after that, then we can go to the independent commission.
Well, I don't know.
Hey, I'm okay with that. However, I think generally speaking that in a commission where we Democrats had the control over it, it would generally be more fair anyway.
Anything Democrats
agree,
do would
I
be more
agree.
fair.
Yeah.
Because we don't play that kind of power politics.
Right.
Well, not to the extent they do. That's for sure.
So listen, we before our next break, we got a few more minutes. I wanted to talk about, Bob, I brought it up with you. Was it 2 weeks ago, I think, maybe, or it might have even been last week. 13 state representatives. You know where I'm going with that number, don't you?
I think it was 15.
Was it? No, that was.
I think I saw 13, but you are in that body. You would know.
so-
Yeah.
But in any event, 13 state or 15 state representatives voted to secede from the United States of America. I don't know how many state reps were on the bill. But before they could vote on it, certain state reps had to sign their name to a bill and put it in to change the Constitution to secede from the United States of America. And I'm ashamed to say that one of those state reps is my Ward 8 state rep, Warden.
Yeah.
Warden,
Who
formerly in Goffstown. I'm not
well,
sure.
I don't know where the heck he's from because I
I'm
looked
not
him
sure
up
he was ever entitled to be there.
to
but-
try to get in touch with him, and his address is up on Route 3 in Hooksett or something, as his home address. So I don't know if they have a rule that if you're a state rep, you got to put your actual home address on your bio. But if they don't, they should. I mean, dear Lord, this guy's representing Ward 8 and his address is up on DW Highway North.
Well, he doesn't want to be part of this country, so he clearly doesn't want to be part of this town.
It doesn't really matter, does it?
So what's his first name? Warden. What's his
Jack.
Jack
Warden?
John, Jack.
Jeff Warden? I don't know. Mark Warden. It's Mark, isn't it?
Oh, it's Mark. I'm
yeah.
sorry.
Mark Warden.
You're right. I'm sorry.
The progress report
Mark.
calls you out. You're violating your
Yeah,
oath.
Mark, if you're out there, call us in and defend your vote to support secession from the United States of America.
But I'd like to, Alan, what's your thought
my,
on this
my
whole
thought
fiasco?
is so one, it's embarrassing, as I'm sure you guys have friends who don't live in New Hampshire, and then when we make national news, often it is not for the best reasons. So I have friends calling me after this vote last week and are like, "Are you kidding me? What is this?" And some of them know about the Free State Project and understand what it is. But some of them are like, "This is insane. How are they even not being kicked out of the legislature for this?" And I think
that's kind of my inquiry.
Yes.
How can you take
So,
an oath and then do this?
I think that it is testament to the fact that sometimes it's testament to the fact that right now, nothing matters to the Republican Party as far as how crazy you say, or what you say, how crazy what you say is, and that they
right.
kind of don't. All right, well, just give them a break. Like, they're just rowdy rabble-rousers. They're talking about seceding from the union.
Yeah,
no big deal. There was a civil war. Over
I was
that.
going to say, I remember some guys that.
Yeah.
I think we had some contest over that.
Yeah. There were some times when people were literally convicted for treason.
Could
for
it
certain
be
things.
that the House of Representatives isn't serious?
I think
Is that what the story is that
I
we
think
take
that
away from
that
this?
is. I think that the problem is that the leaders in the House aren't willing to reprimand members who do that because they're afraid of their own base. One. Two, I think that they also don't want anything to do. They want to. The Speaker is not a terrible guy, but he doesn't want to he does not want to deal with the issue of having to handle that kind of issue within his own caucus. He doesn't want to go and say, "Hey, you're out. You don't want to be an American? You're out." And then he'll find out that it wasn't just 15 or 13 people. It was actually 40 or 50 of them that actually thought that this was a good bill and that maybe we should try to do this. I think that the problem is that there's not from the top an interest in actually reprimanding these people and holding them accountable. I also think that it's a public education issue where we need to educate people in New Hampshire that this is going on. I think there are efforts right now that are in the works to try and let our state know that this is going on, and not that
The
it's
one
just,
effort is my bringing it up here on the show.
yeah.
I mean, we do have one or two viewers, and
Yeah.
I'm hoping that they'll tell their brother and sister about it.
Well, the thing is about it is that when people are educated about it and they find out about it, some of them are appalled, and others are like, "That can't be true. Like, that can't be a thing. There's not a project within the state where you sign a contract that once there's enough people in the state that you will try to secede from the. That can't be true." I'm like, "Oh, it is. It is true.
It's very true.
And they are moving in droves. There are companies that are churning out housing for them. In the West Side, obviously, we've got a lot of them in Ward 11. The issue is that people don't show up and they're not involved enough in government. We saw the issue in Croydon that just happened with the school budget. It was a $1.6 million school budget. Only 20 people showed up at the town meeting. Now it's $800,000.
It was a snowstorm. It's how much of the want to do you have?
Yeah.
How much of
Yep.
the want to do you have?
Yeah.
Which I'm going to circle back. That's why I brought the two videos that I brought, because it's serious.
Yeah.
We've
Yep.
got to want to, all the way down to school board.
Yep, absolutely. And I do think that there was encouraging signs during town meeting day and the elections. There was a lot of reasonable, good people that got elected, and a lot of crazies and people
Right.
who believe in that the vaccine isn't
it
real,
was very
that
heartening.
that all of these nutty policies. they were defeated. And because I think that at the local level, when people are educated about this, they don't want their town to go down that route. Who wants to slash their budget by $800,000 so that their kids have a worse education? Nobody. If there hadn't just been 20 people at that meeting, that wouldn't have been the outcome. And I think it's the same on all of this stuff. Like, if local governments had more involvement from the average people in their towns and cities, then we wouldn't be having all this. That's why there are people who are getting elected to office in the state legislature who want us to secede from the union, because the people don't know that that's what they're about. You wouldn't go, unless it was your thing and you were a free stater, you wouldn't say, I'm a red-blooded American patriot, and you know what, I'm going to go out and vote for this guy who wants to leave the union. But it's not something that would happen. And I would say that most Republicans would say that they are red-blooded patriots and that they love America. And say what you want about them, but they're pretty hardcore about the fact that they love America. We all lived through the George W. Bush administration, lots of flag waving and stuff like that. Those are the same people in a lot of cases now that are supporting the free state movement, and they don't know, I don't think, what actually the end goal is, which is to leave the American country that they are so in love with, and that we are also in love with.
Yeah, can you imagine relying on that booming New Hampshire economy as a single unit?
No, and
I mean, we're doing good within the context of the United States.
But to your point, I've seen representatives who are free state members who are advocating for supporting homeless veterans, supporting any group that is marginalized in our state. If they're supporting them, what happens when we aren't a part of America? Like, what are these United States veterans going to do? How are we going to support them? How are we going to provide housing for them? Are we going to allow tourists still in New Hampshire? But we're going to need a passport to get from Massachusetts to New Hampshire? Like, these are things that are clearly not well thought out. It's by people who want to pound their chests and
so
they
it was
want attention.
It was a grandstand vote.
I think
was a
that's
vanity
what it was.
project. It was a grandstand vote.
That is not to say that they don't believe what they voted for, but they should be held accountable for what they said they believed in. Because I can tell you right now, can you imagine if Democrats had voted to secede from the union? What would have happened to you, Representative? If you had said that you wanted to secede from the union and a Republican-controlled, and they weren't for that, you would have been expelled.
Well, we had an example in New Hampshire with the Indian Stream Republic way back when, up in the
up in the North Country. Up in
North
Pittsburgh.
Country. It was independent for about 10 years, I guess.
Yep. It's a beautiful area up there.
But that was well before the Civil War. I would have thought the Civil War had ended all talk that the United States was anything other than one country.
Yes, you would hope so.
Well, we've gone a little past our break. You want to take a quick 10-second break, regroup, and we can come in for the home finish?
Let's do it. And please join us by calling in.
640-3091.
Please do. Hey everybody, this is the progress report for this date, March 23rd, 2022.
Time marches on.
And we are,
See what I did there?
We are marching toward, we are actually in spring, not just meteorological spring, but actual spring. We've got daylight savings time is back, and it's staying late and nice.
Sox are playing down in
Florida.
Florida.
Sox are playing in Florida.
To have a baseball season.
And they have a
Gonna have a
baseball
baseball
season.
season, yeah.
Although nobody can afford to go to their goddamn games in Fenway.
Oh boy, we are on fire with the language here, boys. I tell you.
Um,
Do I have to be the school marm in this outfit? I'm the crazy one. I'm the one that you guys are supposed to console.
But anyhow, we are having a wonderful time chatting with Alan Raff, who's a union guy, a good guy.
Good organizer for the
chairman
city of
the
Manchester.
Manchester
way too
City
kind.
Democratic Party, which is coming up on an event that beloved by both my good friend Mike Farley.
It's always been my
and
favorite.
Alan Raff, and it's the St. Patrick's Day Parade coming up on Sunday. We did a whole show on that, which was great fun.
You know, that's the only thing I regret about being involved with the Hibernians is that I just can't get to the breakfast because we're getting ready for the parade. So I haven't been to a breakfast in a long time. It was my favorite. The eggs were always good.
There are good eggs. They are good eggs. Even though it has changed ownership, I guess it's a new restaurant. It's not the Tower Cafe. It's the Granite State Lunchbox now. But
Same place though, right?
Same place. Bottom of the Brady Sullivan building over off Elm, or the other Brady Sullivan building, I guess I should say. But yep. Sunday, 9 o'clock. It's going to be a great event. We have Senator Hassan's going to be joining us, Congressman Pappas, the mayor, and we're going to be awarding our great Carrie Thurman the award for the St.
I
Patrick's
saw her
Day.
today in Goffstown,
Yeah.
helping the congressman do Meals on Wheels.
She is an amazing person.
She's an amazing person.
She's one of those people that I've always been terrified of professionally when I've worked under her, but also at the same time respected and wanted and inspired by her to be more like her.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, she's one of those people that if you got an order down from Carrie, and my wife has worked for her too, you listened and you made that happen always. not out of
Well,
just
she sounds
fear,
like
but
an
out of
excellent
respect.
choice
And yeah, she's
to be
she's
your
amazing.
honoree.
She's amazing. She's also a hilarious person and a great person, a great organizer, a great Democrat.
Yeah, good. So what's going to happen at this event? You're going to honor her?
We're going to honor her.
The mayor's usually pretty good at skewering people.
Oh yeah,
too.
yeah. The mayor.
You might want to come there. She can really,
Oh yeah, she's
she can
she's
really
fun.
throw the darts.
Oh yeah, and I think it's a roast around the awardee. It'll be classy. Obviously, we're gonna have a U.S. senator there and a U.S. Congressperson there, so it's not gonna be too down in the dirt. But I expect it to be really.
It gets
funny.
a little salty.
Yeah, sure.
I've seen a few. I remember when Jim Craig would do the roasting. He was vicious.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
He did not hold back.
That's what I've
He
that's
did
what
not
I've heard.
hold back.
No, the last one we had was in 2019, so we're really excited about
Oh,
bringing
this
it back.
is quite a wait
Yeah.
to
So
get
this
back
is
to this.
and the last time it was Senator Kavanaugh who was getting roasted, and the mayor let him have it. Although I will say that there were a couple of jokes that I knew were going to happen prior to her delivering them, and she was laughing so hard before she delivered the jokes that she didn't actually get to deliver them.
Step on the punch.
Well,
but hey,
she doesn't hold back.
No,
boy.
she doesn't.
can
No,
really
it was
get
great.
the zingers in there.
No, it's going to be a fun time, and then everybody's going to go to the parade where we're going to see something amazing that you were telling me about before the show. You guys already went over the giant flag.
Oh yeah.
Go ahead on that.
I'm sorry.
You had your
Oh well, you know.
nice.
I would like to say we got a few minutes. I would like to say something about that flag because the one reason that we're doing it is because we're coming out of 2 years with no parade. Everybody's been through COVID. We really wanted to. When I say we, the entire Irish community, the people who put this parade together, the St. Patrick's Parade Committee, the Ancient Order of Hibernians, two separate groups, the Ladies Ancient Order of Hibernians, the Hibernian Pipes and Drums, and 6 pipe bands. All 3 Manchester Public High Schools, the
Very
Londonderry High School. It's going to be great, and as Hibernians, we wanted to add to that, and so we went out and took up a collection, and we are honoring our departed brother Kenneth P. Robinson Jr., who died in 2021 at the age of 51 in his sleep. He was called to heaven. That man epitomized volunteerism. That man was the example of volunteerism. I can tell you one honor that was bestowed upon his memory was Millennium Running has a Volunteer of the Year award that they give out at the end of their racing season, and they renamed it the Kenneth P. Robinson Volunteer of the Year Award. That's what Kenny did. His family, his parish, his business, the Hibernians, and every other organization that he was involved with. He volunteered every spare minute that he had. And so to honor his memory, we were going to be parading this gigantic, I'll tell the story about it in a minute, but it's a gigantic Irish flag. It's going to take 20 to 30 people to carry it all the way down Elm Street. It's big, it's bright, it's going to be a big wow event, I hope. And you might have read something about it in the paper, and this is where the story comes in. When I was talking with Mark Hayward about a potential story, I made a mistake, and I told him that it was 100 feet long. And that got his attention, and he called me back, and that's why the story actually got written. But I had to, when I first spoke with him, I had to say there was a little bit of blarney in that because I had made a mistake. It's a 30-foot long flag, but that's a big flag.
It's a huge flag.
It's the biggest Irish flag in the state of New Hampshire.
Probably.
Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. I'll bring on all colors. All comers prove me wrong. But that's it's important to know why we're doing that. We're trying to honor a departed brother who really. Manchester's nothing if it's not volunteers. Everything that you see happen in this city, there's a volunteer somewhere in the chain that made it happen. Everything. And Kenny was just a great example of that. And I was honored to have him as a brother.
That's awesome.
Very good. Okay. And the City Dems will be having their big fundraiser, right?
Yep,
before
Sunday
that.
morning, 9 o'clock.
And that's a great thing to look forward to. I urge everybody to turn out and support this. So,
Good eggs.
how are you feeling about looking forward to 2022? You know, we may have dodged the worst, which is the congressional redistricting as proposed by the redistricting commission led by Representative Barbara Griffin from Goffstown, which the governor said do not pass the smell test, and apparently he's really putting some teeth behind that. How are you feeling about our chances in 2022?
So I think that, it's easy to get disheartened thinking that this is the way that it's going to be, that the districts are going to be drawn in the state senate districts and the House districts, not the congressional districts, but the legislative districts are going to be drawn the way that they are drawn. I will say, however, though, that because of the trend nationally down to the local level is that people are kind of paying attention to what's going on. And I feel like the blatant gerrymandering of these districts in other cases around the country, in some cases, they get pummeled. The Democrats will get pummeled because of the way it's been gerrymandered. However, in some cases, it's shown that people turn out because they realize that their vote is trying to be suppressed.
That's the out-organized theory. We're going to just outwork them. We're going to out-organize
It can't work everywhere, of course. And I think that there are places where we didn't win before and we're not going to win now. I do think that the places that we win and that we have been winning, we've always out-organized. We always do, and we will continue to do that. And I think that when you get a fresh group of candidates in, because we have a lot of people who are going to be retiring, who aren't going to be serving anymore. They're going to, on both sides of the aisle. So we're going to have fresh blood. And I think that I can speak for young Democrats, kind of ish. I'm not really young anymore, but
Yes, you are.
I know young Democrats well, and I know that here in New Hampshire, they are more energized than the young Republicans are. They're more energized than
That's good to hear.
They
Really
are,
good to hear.
and not only are they more energized, they're more organized. And we are dedicated to fighting in every place that there is a fight. And to be honest, even when there is a chance, there's no chance for us to win, we're still going to fight. Like, if there's a state rep district in Wyndham, Salem, we're still going to fight for that district. I do think that having the enthusiasm matters. And I think that if we can hold, do I think that it's possible for us to take back the entire House? I do think it's possible. Do I think that I would have felt better if the districts weren't gerrymandered? Of course. But I think that you can get complacent when you're in power. I think that there is a big drive of young people now, not just because of what I saw in town meeting day, but people are listening up. There's a lot of crazy going around on the other side. There's a lot of things that don't make sense to average people. There's a lot of stuff that they're seeing that's impacting them in their own homes. Their ability to put food on the table for their family, keep the electric on. Like, there are things that we need to tap into, and we need to be good about communicating about what Democrats do for people. And that's the most important thing we can do.
Do you think that the voter suppression efforts, which seems to be a major part of the Republican agenda these days,
It has to be.
Yeah.
it has to be, because they
We
Bereft
will
of
always
ideas.
win.
They got no ideas.
If the majority votes, they lose.
Yes.
But can we overcome that here in New Hampshire? Because I know even in New Hampshire, we have to get more than 50% of the vote to take control of either house.
And we to start with, have tough voting restrictions. We vote on one day. No early voting. You need a very limited, like 2 or 3 reasons you could get an absentee ballot to vote
And they
by
want
mail.
to take those away now, even though they worked so well when we were.
Oh,
underground.
the no-fault absentee ballot?
yeah.
Greatest thing in the world.
Yeah.
Greatest thing in the world.
Yeah.
I used it.
Yeah.
You know, I wasn't going out there during COVID, and it worked like a charm.
Yep.
And by the way, New Hampshire knows how to run elections, too. It's you don't have the same issues that you might have with some other places.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. I think that the voter suppression is something that we need to worry about all across the country now, especially in places like New Hampshire where so little votes can decide an election. You know, and that, so the fact that we miss, you know, in a state like California, if you miss 5 voters, it's like, okay, whatever. And we see all the time that an election can change because 5 people aren't allowed to vote.
That's right.
So,
That's right.
and I think there are organizations, the ACLU, America Vote, there are plenty of organizations who are working on it. I think, you know, say what you want about the Supreme Court. I think that we do have a legal system here in New Hampshire that when they see what the facts are of a case, as far as like a voter suppression case or the districts go to the courts, they're going to get a fair shake. Now, are they going to turn out the way we want them to? Maybe not. But I do have faith in the fact that we are going to continue to be right about what voter suppression is, because they can say that this isn't voter suppression, but everybody knows that's what it is. Even the people that support it know that they're
How do you
suppressing
get
the
that
vote.
message out so people understand what's at stake here?
I think that, unfortunately, like, they just have to, and I do think this is happening right now. I think that over the past 4 years, people have seen what has happened when they haven't had their ability to vote, or they see what happens when they don't vote. Like, you got to believe that the people in Croydon woke up
they
the
learned
next
a
morning-
valuable lesson, didn't they?
One night, they saw their school budget get slashed in half, and they said to themselves, wow, I got to be more involved. And now I hope that doesn't happen in all the places in New Hampshire, but it very well could. And I hope that kind of thing serves as a wake-up call for people, because you can only suppress the vote to a certain extent. But if everybody goes and votes, even when they're trying to suppress the vote, we win. And that's been seen everywhere. From in the South, in Georgia, we've seen that. And I think that it's all about just getting people activated and trying to get through to them in a way that you're making your argument in a way that doesn't belittle how they think, doesn't make them feel like they've been doing something wrong for so long, but energizing them to feel like their voice matters, and that if they don't, then you might end up like Croydon.
Alan, you've been a terrific guest again.
Thank you so much for
glad
having
we
me,
gotta
guys.
bring 'em back
able to
again.
catch you after a couple of attempts when you were deterred by a
Legislature.
cat attack.
Yeah, that's right.
kind of
My face
amusing.
looks much better now. My face looks much better now.
And I have to say, I'm so glad you're chairing the Manchester City Dems, and I look forward to many more accomplishments, because you're the kind of guy we want to help move our ship of state forward, and I think
you,
you're
guys.
well qualified to do that. Mike, we'll be back next week.
No, next week is April, isn't it? Or
No.
we do. Well, then I'll be here. If it's not, if
You got one more week. You have to put up with me. And we
I
will
can do it. I can do it.
We will talk about what we want to do, but I'm looking forward to it, as I do every time. So this was great. Thank you for coming in, Alan. I think we had a great show. I'm sorry nobody called in, but we know we have viewers out there that have been paying attention. I expect we'll get some feedback, because we usually do.
Say goodbye, Bob.
And have a great time at the parade. The best parade in northern New England is this weekend on Sunday, preceded by the best fundraiser for the City Dems right before
Breakfast,
that.
eggs, best eggs. See you
Best
next week,
eggs.
folks. Thanks for watching.
Take-